Blood pumping, adrenaline flowing, headache inducing, and thumb breaking. These are the many sensations that describe my experience playing Warhammer Boltgun. But if anything took the cake, it was the fact that my actual thumb swelled up so bad from the amount of pressure I was applying to a controller while playing this game that it looked like I slammed it in between a door and its frame for fun. Like, what kind of game induces some in real life physical damage to you? Well, it's the kind of game that I can get behind. Also, I'm not a masochist, so shush. Oh boy, so where do we begin with Warhammer Boltgun? Well, if any of you are new to the universe or just the concept of Warhammer 40k, let me explain it to you in the simplest terms possible. Did that suffice? No? Well, too bad. That's all you're gonna get from me, because that was pretty much all there is to it. War and death. Well, not just war and death, but everything else in 40k would probably take me a couple years just to go through it all, so, no. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that dig into the lore of Warhammer 40k that you can watch if you're interested in it, but for this video, all you really need to know is this. The universe of Warhammer 40k is the manifestation of those simple but brutal concepts of war and death, and Warhammer Boltgun deals those things in spades. Now, what is Warhammer Boltgun? Well, it is a retro-style first-person boomer shooter that takes after games such as classic Doom and Quake, and this means a lot of fast arena-based combat and screaming as you find yourself being assailed by lots, and I mean lots, of filthy black cloth heretics, small Shreks, and blue and pink D&D wizards that seem to understand the meaning of fire and what it does to people, especially you. Now, I'm not going to explain the story here, I will later on in the video, just know you're in for a treat of a game. So, Warhammer Boltgun was developed by Destructoid Digital and published by Focus Entertainment. The game was announced on June 1st, 2022 at Warhammer Skulls 2022. It was released a year later in May 2023, and it garnered great reviews all around, with Steam around a 92% positive review, IGN giving it a 7 out of 10, PC Gamer giving it an 85 out of 100, and Metacritic giving it a 75 out of 100, and a user score of 8.4. Now, unlike XO1, Destructoid Digital, the development studio who made Boltgun, is made up of a larger team. So instead of talking about individual people, I just want to talk a little bit about the development studio itself. The studio is based in Bristol in the UK and was founded in 2010. They have made other games such as Brewmaster Beer Brewing Simulator or Mars Horizon. I know, not the type of games you were expecting, but there you go. They also developed other more obscure games such as Last Days of Old Earth and Ogre that were unsurprisingly and unfortunately not as popular as Warhammer Boltgun. Not even close. In all honesty, Warhammer Boltgun was kind of an outlier when it came to their game catalog, with the majority of their games focusing on the strategy and management and tabletop genres. In a weird turn of fate, Warhammer Boltgun became their most popular game. So good job to Destructoid Digital on delivering such an outlier success of theirs. You know, it is good to see that a company that had no visual proof of experience in the first-person shooter genre, let alone a boomer shooter at that, take a lot of pride and care into fully fleshing out the experience, and also doing it with a universe that would have had a lot of people really, and I mean really mad if they didn't do it justice. Which, fortunately, it didn't come to that, and they delivered a well-made game that represents the source material admirably. This would explain why Warhammer Boltgun became their first majorly successful game, with the amount of hype and anticipation surrounding its release. But anyway, you now know a little bit about the developer, Destructoid Digital, and the basics of the history and timeline of Boltgun. Let's get into the real fun stuff, the stuff you want to know and see. Pixelated glory is all I can say. Well, technically not completely pixelated glory, but we will get into that. So, straight to the visuals. The game hosts a variety of different environments spanning from eerie temples to desolate canyons to sweat-inducing factory floors, and a couple other wonderfully grim environments. In all the environments though, Boltgun holds to the gothic aesthetic of the 40k universe. From giant looming statues to the skulls that adorn halls and buildings to the candles on the temple floors and giant stained glass windows. It definitely brought the 40k universe to pixelated life with its visuals, the only unique take on it being the retro style itself. Some people have come to dislike the art direction of the game, hoping for a more realistic looking game similar to Space Hulk, Deathwing, or Darktide, while others have lauded it for it. For me, the pixelated style was a good homage to 90s classics, and I found it pleasing to look at, so I think it fit the bill for the type of boomer shooter that Destructoid Digital was going for. Also, you can change how the environment and game look in the settings. There are options to change how much retro style you want and how much pixelation you want, which I can say is always nice to have. I kept it at default settings, but there is that option for people who want to change the style around a little. Now, what about enemy design? Well, there's one thing I would like to point out before we talk about them. That is, in a PlayStation blog post, the lead designer, Grant Stewart, did say that when developing visuals for enemy models, they'd sculpted, rigged, and animated the models as you would normally in the development of models for games nowadays. However, when rendering out the animated models as digital images, they took camera shots of the model at multiple angles, then imported them into the Unreal Engine to be stitched back together into 2D flipbook animation. So, to put it basically, all the enemies you see in the game were actually created using modern techniques of today, but were processed out into a style of retro enemies of the past. And that's pretty cool in my opinion, but hell, I ain't a graphic designer, so maybe not so cool. Now, returning to the design of the enemies themselves, in the game you will meet 3 different groups of enemies. You have the main heretic faction of the Black Legion, basically your vanilla heretics of vanilla heretics in 40k. Don't hate me. Then you have the Nurglites, which are the followers of the Chaos God Nurgle, which is basically the god of tuberculosis, STDs, and sweaty meatballs. Lastly, you have Wizard 101. These pink and blue chuckle fucks like to burn you and your family. I'm not joking, look at them. Well, seriously, they are the followers of Zinch, basically the god of magic, knowledge, and everything else that falls under the concept of fuck you. Also, here are the secrets of fire, lightning, tentacles, and corrupting erotica. Wait, you say tentacles? Anyway, within these 3 factions, there are multiple enemy types from your little pipsqueak pushovers to the alright, well fuck me, right? Right, come at me, you big son of a... Excuse me, I was meaning to say boss type enemies, like the Great Unclean One, the Lord of Change, and the Chaos Terminator. It ranges from there, and there's a good variety too, which is great in my opinion. To finish off the visuals, I want to tell you about my 2 favorite things that the game did right. The gore and weapons. Let's start with the weapons. There are about 8 different guns, and each are styled to look like their counterparts in the conceptual art of the 40k universe. From the almighty Boltgun to the God Emperor Blessed Grav Gun, each has such a unique feel to it, and they didn't mess up when it came to their design. Even the shooting and reloading animations of each gun are authentic to 40k goodness, and it's always nice to admire weapons while mowing down your occasional heretic board meeting. Now, the gore, the blood of heretics and demons. Man, I am so glad they didn't skimp on the carnage and gory nature of 40k. Even for a retro-style, pixelated-looking game, I enjoyed watching a single bolt-around burst a cultist into red paste, or watching a Terminator crumble into a bloody pile of armor and metal. It was just excellent to look at and admire. It served as a nice blood cherry on the top of an already beautiful retro cake. From the little gibbets that fly everywhere when a cultist or demon explodes, to the body parts of your enemies sliding down the walls of the environment, leaving, of course, a nice red river bloodstain. It was fantastically 40k carnage. And what should we always say? Blood for the... Wait, that ain't... Boltgun, in my opinion, holds up to the old classics when it comes to its visuals. And I think the developer can be proud that they brought this vision of what they wanted the game to look like to life. And succeeded at it while still doing the 40k universe justice. Now, what about the sound design? Did it sound and feel like Warhammer 40k? Well, let's find out. Ah, the sound of gunfire and explosions. What a blessing to hear these things. And oh my god, just listen to this bolter. The God Emperor has a smile on his face today. Now, where do I even begin? I think we should start with the soundtrack. It is one of the first things you hear in this game, and it is suitable. Not perfect to some people, but good enough for me. The soundtrack itself was possibly developed by a band called D-Rok, which, all I could say, perfect name. And if you don't get it, just look up 40k Orc. I do not know if that is technically true, but from what I was seeing, the soundtrack was either heavily inspired by this band, or the band actually contributed to the game. From what I can read and see, a majority of the songs of the soundtrack are actually instrumental versions of D-Rok, so I'm leaning towards heavily inspired, but I could be wrong. Now, some info on the band D-Rok. It is considered a hard rock band, and it has lots of Warhammer 40k influence surrounding its songs. D-Rok was signed onto the Games Workshop Records label called Warhammer Records, which I did not know Games Workshop had a record label. The more you know, I guess. Anyway, a lot of the music in Boltgun comes straight from the D-Rok album of Oblivion, with a lot of the soundtrack being instrumental versions of the songs in Oblivion. Now, I've seen a lot of people comment on the music stating it's the weakest part of the game. And I can say I sorta agree with them. I think the game definitely could have used a bit more explosive music, because a lot of the music from what I can remember was a bit subdued while I was playing. I do not know if it was because it was mostly instrumental or something along those lines, but the music didn't really pack a huge enough punch that would make a huge impression on me. In all honesty, I think the gunfire from the weapons and explosions were so overwhelming that I think the sound of the music was just merged right into the melody of destruction I was creating. Which, don't get me wrong, the soundtrack worked and it was fine, it just needed a bit more oomph to make it stand out. However, aside from the soundtrack, they excelled at the more special environmental sounds, such as sounds from your guns, to the taunts, to the explosions, to enemies blowing up, to enemy sounds. They definitely got the Emperor's blessing when it came to that. A great example of this is literally the first time you step into the game. From the heavy metallic footsteps of the Space Marine indicating the absolute unit that a Space Marine is, to the very first shot from your bolter. You could tell they did it justice. I felt every gunshot from the bolter when it impacted enemies. You could hear the sound of guts and bones popping and being eviscerated to paste. You could tell it was done well. And this was just the bolter. The other weapons from the heavy bolter to the plasma gun all had unique sounds as well. However, where the more mundane sounds, such as terrain sounds or atmospheric sounds, come to play, I didn't really notice them. These are things such as gears turning and lava flowing. Like, when I went back to check the game footage, they were there. Like, I could hear the gears turning and the lava flowing if I focused on them, but it was more subtle than anything else, which I think was a smart move. The environments didn't take away from the main sound base of the game, which was centered around the sounds involving the weapons and fighting. It was just subtle enough to be hidden when you didn't look for it, but noticeable enough if you were, which I highly doubt you would. I just did to double check if there was any environmental sound at all. Also, heads up, this game is quite loud, like literally. I remember a couple times I had to take my headset off because the bass volume of this game can be really loud, so fair warning. If you like your eardrums, probably turn down your volume a bit. It might be my fault, but I kept the sounds at default, or usually lower them just a tiny bit for my stream, so just keep it in mind. Now, one of the last things we should talk about is the dialogue. It is few and far between in this game, but the majority of it you will find the nicely designed cutscenes in the game with the protagonist listening to the voice of Inquisitor Cybele, basically your handler as you journey on the world of Graia. Now, the voice actress for Inquisitor Cybele is Rachel Atkins, and in my opinion did a good enough job of creating a voice for the Inquisitor that was suitably sophisticated and mechanical for a half-human, half-machine that she is.
Together, you will search sites where communication has become sporadic. Should you encounter any opposition, you may assume they have been tainted by the ruinous powers. Suffer not the heretic to live.
Other than that, the only other dialogue you will hear in the game are your protagonist's taunts. All I can say about them is that they're your typical but absolutely inspiring lines that coincide with the ideals of Space Marine rhetoric. They are great to use when you're wading through the blood and filth of dead heretics and purged demons.
I am the edge of his blade. Forget nothing. Forgive no one.
That's pretty much it though. Sound design was definitely treated with care and much of it was good enough for the 40k universe. Now gameplay. Is there enough purging going on for the Emperor to be satisfied? You know, I want to check this out and mention this if it had any real purpose. You know the taunting I was talking about just a couple of seconds ago? Well, I wanted to see if it had any real purpose in the game other than just being fun to say cool Space Marine lines. Well, from what I could find, some people said taunting could actually get enemies to move out of cover at times, but I was just taking that with a grain of salt since it was most likely speculation rather than actual proven concept. I digress though. I know what you really want. You want to understand if this game fully immerses you into the combat correctly and if it does the atmosphere of 40k warfare justice. And oh my good Emperor, it does just that and more. Before I get into it, I want to explain I play the entire game on the second to last difficulty, which is basically hard. I usually play games on medium because I do not want to rage for no reason and get stuck on parts because of game difficulties, so I pretty much always play it safe. I know, wow, such a daring gamer, aren't you? I know I am, right? Well, a friend of mine who I shall not name dared me to play it on hard since he knows my rule regarding difficulty levels. And since I ain't no little bitch to back down from a dare, I did it. Don't hold me to that sentence in the future. Please. Anyway, I decided on playing on hard, and all I can say, I surprisingly enjoyed the experience, even though it wrecked my thumb. Oh yeah, it did. After playing this game for about 3 days straight, having 4 to 5 hour sessions each day, my thumb literally swelled up like a balloon, and the reason being is because the game is fast-paced, and I mean real fast-paced. Now, I was using a controller, and in the game, pressing down the left joystick makes you sprint, and you have unlimited sprint. Do you see where I'm going with this? If not, I'm just gonna let you know, I don't think I let off of that sprint button once. I applied so much pressure, I probably could have crushed any Heretic skull with just a thumb press. It was surprising to say at least, but I guess it was appropriate for a game about the 40k universe. Other than the fast-paced combat, you have a decent selection of weapons, 8 to be exact. From the bolter to a shotgun to the more lower-based weapons like a grav gun and melt-a-gun. It was a good variety of weapons that each had their own unique purposes, as they should have. I will say the one weapon I really saw no use in using, which sadly is probably the most iconic weapon other than the Boltgun, was the chainsword. It is your melee attack in the game, and I rarely used it. I think if you do kill an enemy with it, it drops more health and armor pickup, which makes it useful, but don't hold me to my memory, I might be wrong, and also, still, the game provides you with plenty of armor and health throughout the environment that I never really used it for that purpose, if the chainsword had that purpose. Also, getting in close in this game at harder difficulties is a good way to get killed, just saying. Now, aside from the weapons, the environment has a variety of pickups from health and armor pickups, standard to your boomer shooters, but also standard to boomer shooters you have ability pickups and interesting ammo modifications for the bolter. Starting with abilities, you have 7 different power pickups, each doing something uniquely different. Just to name 3 of them, you have a simple one like infinite ammo, which is self-explanatory. Then you have the machine spirit, which is probably my favorite. It powers up whichever weapon you are holding at the time of pickup, giving a different effects to your weapons from a simple damage boost to a more bizarre one, such as making your bullets ricochet. It is quite fun to see what happens to each weapon as you pick it up. Now, the last one, which in my opinion is the holy grail of abilities, is the Emperor's Visage, which is basically your Space Marine taking about 20 tons of steroids blessed by the Emperor straight to their 12-stack abs, while wearing Sun Spaghetti armor. It is basically your massive armor boost that particularly helps you survive really grueling fights, especially some of the later fights. Now, I do not know how many of these there were, but throughout the game, you can find special ammo for the bolter. They do different things like ammo that specifically goes through multiple targets, to explosive rounds, to various other ones. It is really just another fun group of item pickups that will help you dish out the damage you want in special situations. Now, a majority of the pickups we were talking about, such as the ammo and abilities, are actually classified under secrets. Now, I didn't find every secret, but I did a fair bit of exploring, and a majority of those are those pickups that I mentioned. Which I will say kind of saddens me, because if any of you remember games like Serious Sam, Classic Doom, and Quake, or even newer boomer shooters like Dusk, they had fun with their secrets. Some were unique or references to other games. I kind of wish D-Rok Digital had some fun with the secrets, but it is alright. It doesn't make the game any worse or anything. I just think it would have been cool to see references that relate to the 40k universe, something that diehard fans would get a kick out of. I will say I'm not truly one of those, but for those people who are diehard fans, I think it would have been a good option for them to have them. The last thing I want to talk about is the game layout. A majority of the levels follow the concepts of old. You have plenty of exploration spaces between arena-based battles, which is something you will find in all boomer shooters, and in Boltgun it does the same formula. And it works really well within the universe, and many of the areas are great fun to run around in. They can sometimes be confusing, but that's alright. Now, one particular level that I enjoyed immensely was entirely arena-based level with only 3 side exploration areas. And that is the Grand Elevator level. And oh my god, the fucking amount of enemies! Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoy boomer shooters. But good Emperor, my finger was actually dying that level. It is an overall fantastic level to me. And it is not spectacular in looks, but it was an arena worth fighting in. I think we hit the majority of the gameplay aspects that make up the game. I would discuss the individual enemies, but I think I would rather save that for you to find out. Also, this video is getting kind of long. Well, anyway, that's it. Now, is there a story worth telling in Boltgun? Well, kind of. You'll see. As always, I'm going to pause the video for a few seconds. If you do not want the game to be spoiled to you, you should get going and leave if you want. Thanks for showing up. Don't forget to leave. And you're gone. Okay, radio then. Well, let's wait a couple seconds, shall we? Okay, so let's start from the beginning. You are Malam Kato, a firstborn Stormguard veteran. Don't ask me, it would take too long to explain. Just go jump in the 40k rabbit hole yourself. But you and your squad have been tasked with retrieving a power source that has warp energies to it by Inquisitor Cybele, an Inquisitor of the Order of Malice. You know, I'm thinking, if anything seems or sounds interesting in this part of the video, look into it in your spare time. It would take me eons to explain all of it, and I'm not going to do a good explanation anyway. But anyway, you are tasked by Inquisitor Cybele to find this power source with warp energies, which, if allowed to get into Chaos hands, would allow forces of Chaos to come in full mass to the planet of Graia. That is where you come in. You must retrieve it and put a stop to any plans Chaos has for the planet of Graia. And oh boy, do they have a plan. As you come to learn throughout the game, there's a sorcerer by the name of Tomanus Samael. You know what? Fuck you. Who is basically the overarching villain of the story. Basically, he plans to use the power source that you're looking for to expand the warp rift above Graia to a point that it would engulf the whole system. Basically, a giant fucking hole that's eating everything. And by doing this, would transform the planet of Graia into his own personal demon world. So, this means you, and I mean you, as the only survivor of your squad, has to fight through a shit ton of demons and heretics and cultists just so you can stop Samael bitch from completing his plan. Oh, and I didn't mention, yes, your entire squad is dead on the trip down to Graia. They just died. So, you are a Space Marine Doom guy. One-man army. Let's go! Now, the majority of the story is sectioned into 3 main chapters, with 8 levels within each chapter, and each of the chapters having their own atmospheric theme to it. With the first chapter being set down the snowy mountains of Graia, working your way to the first temple/city, where you meet Tomanus Samael for the first time. I fucking hate his name. The second chapter has you tracking after the power source, which leads to the massive mining networks and stations, where you find that Tomanus Samael already has the source of power and is enacting his plan at the station above Graia. So, the final chapter has you return to space, landing on the space station, and finally putting a stop to Samael once and for all. And that's it. Game over. Roll the credits. Or is it? Now, one of the cool things is, in the final cutscene of the game, a cliffhanger shows some shadows of some very special demons who we didn't get to see in the first game of Boltgun. But I know now we're probably going to see in the second game if we have a second game. If you don't know what they are, they're going to be the forces of Khorne and possibly Sinest, which, oh boy, we got the wife beaters and sexually confused pink mannequins. I cannot wait. And if you didn't understand what I just said, don't worry about it. Just wait for the next game. It's going to be worth it. Yeah, it's going to be worth it. That pretty much sums up the story of Boltgun. It is not a complex story, and really, any multitude of stories could be used or made up with the 40k universe. It is deep, and I mean a deep pit of lore and storytelling. It's always evolving with the community, so I can't wait to see what the next story of Boltgun will be. My traumatically injured thumb awaits. Our little overview at the end. Well, from the many things we talked about, I bet you could probably put this section together by yourself. But, just to talk about a few things, Boltgun has a lot of strengths to it, from the great sound design of the weapons to the authentic 40k designs of the environments, enemies, and weapons, and in some really fantastic pixelated graphics. The only real weakness I can say that affected this game, in my opinion, would be the story. It's just like Exo 1. This game probably didn't even need a story. It's just, hand me my bolter, and let me send some lead down range. But I digress. The story was definitely appreciated and served a well enough purpose as a backdrop to the carnage and destruction you committed in the game. Overall, it was a solidly made game. Some people may find grimace with the art style or may want more variety in terms of enemies, bosses, and such, or even weapons. But keep this in mind, my dear guests, that from what I could see, this was Rock Digital's first foray into the shooter genre, and it was a boomer shooter at that. And on top of all that, they took up the mantle of a cherished universe like 40k. And I think for their first time, they did a hell of a job. But here's the cherry on top and something to look forward to. It is never guaranteed, but it is a possibility that the next game may even be better than the first, and have more to it than the first one. So I can't wait to review the second one whenever it comes out. Oh, this is gonna take me so damn long. Okay, so I've been doing this for way too long. We're just gonna... Okay. So, hi, you missed me? Hi, I'm back. I'm not in my avatar form anymore. I'm in a normal human form. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we're done. We completed Warhammer Boltgun. Review, done, over with. You know, basically as much as you can. We didn't go super in depth because it would be 2 hours long probably, and I don't like doing 2 hour long videos. I like to keep it short and simple as best we can, so that's what we're gonna do. The game was released March 23, 2023, and it was good. It was a good game. It was released to a lot of positive reviews, and I could say it's valid. It's definitely worth it. The game currently on Steam is about $21.99. It's about $22. And I think, in my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, it's worth the full price. For people who are diehard or casual fans, will definitely see it's worth the $22. It's not like a $60 game, and it's a good bit of content for $22. But if you're, how can I say this? If you're not a diehard fan, you're not a casual fan, or you don't like 40k but you like boomer shooters, or you don't know anything about 40k but you like boomer shooters, or you just don't know anything, you just want to get a boomer shooter because you're having fun, then I would suggest waiting for it to go on sale. Because it definitely caters to people who like the 40k universe. So I think if you don't like it or you don't know anything about it, just wait, and you'll still get the full enjoyment out of it. You just didn't pay full price, because I don't think you should if you don't know what anything is. But I think it's definitely worth the full price for people who are casual or diehard fans for 40k. I think it's definitely worth the full price. But before I keep you here for 10,000 years, I'm done. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I'm sorry. I promise I will get better. I think I did a lot better this time than last time. That intro, oh my god, in the first video. That was so long. Okay. But this is just the normal stuff that people do on YouTube, I guess. I don't know. If you like the video, leave a like and comment what you liked about it and all that stuff, and send out a hello and how you doing. If you dislike the video, then dislike it and tell me what I did wrong and hurt me bad. Yeah, you heard me. Hurt me real bad. Okay, no, please. I don't like being hurt. Please. No, I don't care. But yeah, be brutal, be honest with what I did wrong. I'm always there for it, because shit, I do a lot of things wrong. So what's another thing? But anyway, yeah. If you have any comments or any of that stuff, leave it in the comment section. And overall, if you believe you have the God Emperor's protection, subscribe, hang out, be around, see other videos. I don't know. If you don't feel like subscribing, then don't, I guess. Would that be heretic-like? I don't know. Don't worry. Oh, so stupid. Oh my god. But anyway, I always like seeing you guys around. However many, the 10 people, the 5 people, the 1 person. I like seeing you people and talking to you people. So you're my dear guests. So you can come and go as you wish. And as always, I cherish your company, and I bid you farewell. Ciao.